everyone, welcome to the Wool and Spinning Podcast. My name is Rachel and I can be found pretty much everywhere as well for pearls. This is episode 57, I think. I've got fiber in my nose. Episode 57, and I'm coming to you from just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia. It is Thursday, February 16th, 2017, and as you can hear, I'm struggling a little bit with my voice. I have a bad cold, and I'm just hoping that I can get through the episode without completely losing my voice. I have some tea right here, and I'm hoping that I don't have to drink it too much and interrupt the show, but just please bear with me because I feel fine, but my voice is gone, which is more annoying than anything. I want to start off with some thank yous to those who are Patreon subscribers to the show. Thank you so much for sticking with me and for subscribing to the show. I really appreciate your support. If you're interested in learning more about the Patreon support for the show, please head over to patreon.com/wellforpearls. And as you know, January launched the first episode of Wool and Spinning Radio, which is a Patreon-only podcast that I put out for the Patreon subscribers. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can head over and listen to the pilot episode that gave you sort of a small taste of what that's all about. I really wanted to highlight as well, this past week was sort of a big one for me and Katrina. For those who are new to this podcast and are new to this space, Katrina is my co-moderator over on the Ravelry group. She is also the dyer and bat carder behind Crafty Jacks on Etsy, and she is local to me. I'm going to cough. Sorry about that. And she is a really dear friend of mine, and we just started a podcast together that's audio. It's called Maker Radio. You can find us at makerradio.wordpress.com. We just launched last week. It is on iTunes and all of the other places that you find your shows. Part of the reason for starting another podcast, because some of you are probably like, oh my goodness, how can you do all these podcasts? The reason for Maker Radio is actually so that Katrina and we have all these awesome conversations about how we fit our making in and around having small children. And we often are like, oh, we should have recorded that, because I bet you there's other people out there that are feeling the same way. So that is what the show is all about. And we also are both very multifaceted. As many of you know, I don't just spin, I knit as well, and I just started weaving. And some of you may not know that I'm actually, I love sewing as well, and I used to be a big sewer. I used to sew a lot of stuff, but I kind of stopped once the kids were born, because I don't have a sewing room and I don't have anywhere to leave it set up. And for those who have sewing machines and are into sewing, you know how space is a problem when it comes to sewing. And so as the kids get older, I've started thinking more and more about sewing. So it's nice to have a venue to talk about some of that stuff, because Katrina sews as well, but she also knits, crochets, spins, and dyes. So that's a lot of what we're talking about in the show. And not every show will be about what we're working on. Some of the shows will have topics. I think most of the shows will have topics, actually, because we tend to work on stuff for a really long time. So that there's not too much overlap. I won't be talking about any spinning on Maker Radio, mostly because I want to save that for this space and for Wool and Spinning Radio on Patreon. So I hope that you'll be willing to check us out and give us a like on iTunes if you like what you hear. Today's show, I have a finished spin that I'm really excited to share with you. I have something fresh and brand new off of my loom, which you can see in the background here. It is my second project, and I'm really excited to share that with you. And I have a couple of other things that I'm working on and that I've resurrected from the prior to Christmas. So let's get right into it. So I thought I would start off by showing you what I finished this week. One of the things that I have been working on, if you're just new to the show, is some Polworth yearling mohair and silk that is from West Coast Color, and Lynn is based here in British Columbia. And I've been working on this on my match list in the evenings and just spinning when I can. And I finished the singles last week and I plied it over the last couple of days. So it's not washed yet. I ended up with 3 hanks, and I don't know, I don't have my little card that has like my spinner's control card that has all my information on it, but I know that I have, it was basically 1,100 yards per pound, and I ended up with 620 yards of yarn from 260 grams. So pretty good. Mohair tends to be quite heavy, so I wasn't surprised that I didn't get more yardage, and I was going for a sport DK-ish yarn, and this is probably going to puff up quite a bit once it's washed because of the Polworth. So I'm thinking this will probably end up being about 10 or 11 wraps per inch once it's finished. This was the little bit that was left, and it was actually a center pull ball. And the funny thing is it was right at the beginning of my spinning when I first started spinning the first bobbin, and it's a little tiny bit finer than the rest of the spin, and I think I started off spinning finer than what I ended up with. But I really, really like how it turned out. It's got a lovely hand and a lovely feel, and I'm excited to see what it looks like post-washing. I did ply this on quite a high ratio, but I spun it on a high ratio. So I spun it at 22:1. And this is what it looks like so this is it balanced, quote unquote. So I spun it at 22:1. But I drafted forward 3 times for every once that my left foot depressed. So for every revolution of the drive wheel, I drafted forward 3 times, and on 22:1. So basically it was like roughly seven twists per inch going into each inch of yarn for every draft, because I was drafting forward about an inch, maybe 1.25 inches. And then I plied it at that same ratio, but I let that twist really go into the yarn as much as possible. So it's wrapping back on itself. When I just let it do it on its own, it's twisting back 1, 2, 3, I'd say 4 times. So it's got a lot of twist in there. It's still got a lot of activated twist, even though this has been resting since last night. It's just very springy and really wants to curl back on itself. I love the look of yarn before it gets washed when it's like this, because I know that once it gets washed, it won't have all of this active twist in it, and it'll kind of lose that bounce. It'll still have sproing, and when you touch the skein, it'll still be, it'll be one of those skeins that people will say, oh, that has a lot of sproing. It's a bouncy yarn. But to see that active twist before I set it, I just love seeing that. If you've seen past episodes, you know that spinning a low twist single and then plying with a high twist ply is my favorite way to make yarn. I would say it's probably my default for most projects that I don't have to pre-plan. Whether that will work for weaving, I'm not sure. I don't know enough yet. I just feel like such an empty vessel when it comes to weaving. But it's definitely my favorite yarn to knit with, particularly sweaters. And one of the reasons is because it preserves that bounce and sproing of the raw fiber and of the original fiber, but gives you a slightly firmer yarn to knit with. And I find personally it stands up a little bit better. So that is my finished yarn for the week. And this is also part of my Spin the Bin from the Completely Twisted and Arbitrary group. I still haven't posted my bin. I probably won't. But this is 2 more braids done from my bin. So I have 12 in total for 2017 that I want to spin through. And I have finished now 3. So that's pretty good. So I'm going to throw that in my Spin the Bin vase with the other skein that I finished. And I'll wash it, label it, throw it in there. And I'll have a photo of all my finished skeins when they're all done, because I'm going to try not to knit with them until it's all done. That's going to kind of be my reward for when I finish my bin. So I'll throw that in, and that was Polworth yearling mohair and silk from West Coast Color, and she is westcoastcolor.net. She has been trying to get her website up and on the go and getting it done. And I'm hoping that it's there now. I'm not sure, but you can email Lynn directly if you want to find out more about her colors, because oh my goodness, I just love her colors so much. So that's finished. I'm just going to throw it over here because I have something else to show you that's finished. And this is my first hand spun weaving that was successful. And I'll talk about that in a sec. So I finished a scarf out of some commercial yarn, and I wanted to do a sampler out of some core spun yarn. So this is core spun from my stash. And I used these 3 skeins. And I have shown these skeins on the podcast before, but eons ago. So these are all core spun. This is Edgewood Garden Studios. This was a carded bat that I made myself. It was the very first bat that I ever carded up. And this was another couple of bats that I had done. And originally these skeins were quite a bit bigger, but a whole bunch of it got lost, quote unquote, in another weaving that I did. And I shouldn't have bitten off so much for my second project, but basically what happened was I warped up the loom, and I wanted like something that you would put in like the center of a table kind of thing. I wasn't sort of thinking like a tapestry for on the wall. I was thinking more something on the table. But I kind of got sidetracked and I started doing really fancy stuff. And I will post some photos of it eventually in a blog post and talk about the process. And it was a little bit too ambitious for my first project. I hadn't warped it properly. I realized later that the warp wasn't on tightly enough and my warp threads were varying tensions. So when I cut off the warp off the loom and I had the weaving in front of me, everything was wavy and there was no way, no matter what I did, it was going to lay flat. So for whatever reason, I hadn't thought of this before, but for whatever reason, I was sitting there feeling very sorry for myself for a moment. And also congratulating myself that I'd gotten over the hump of my second project, knowing that I would have a weaving disaster eventually, and congratulating myself that it had been so soon and that it had only been the second project, because now that it's done, like my weaving true disaster is done. And I'm sure there will be more in the future, but I feel like the really big one that I was really worried about is done, because it was really bad, you guys. It was so bad. It was terrible. Anyways, and it's a loss of a lot of yarn too. So what I did, and actually I can't show it to you today because it's still wet. I actually took it, I soaked it in a really, really hot bath of water with some eucalyptus. I agitated it around with a wooden spoon for a while, and then I threw it in the dryer. And our dryer is incredibly gentle, almost to the point where it doesn't get anything dry. So I wasn't worried about throwing it in there, but I also was actually a bit worried it wouldn't felt anything, because the dryer doesn't really felt stuff. Our washer will, but our dryer really is quite terrible because there's just no heat behind it. We are looking at getting a new dryer. We just haven't made a commitment yet. And so I threw it in there for about 10 minutes and I checked it, and then I actually forgot about it, and I ran down and checked it again, and sure enough, it's felted. So it's not felted to the point where it's hard like cardboard. It's actually really super pleasant, and it's made a really pleasant fabric. And I'm going to cut it up, and I'm actually going to make some notions bags. So if you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen this past week, I think on Friday, it was the Yarn Love Challenge day that was tools. I posted a photo of one of my notions bags that my mom makes for me. It's a really easy pattern. I could make them myself. She's just been generous enough to make them for me. And I'm going to use up all of it as much as I possibly can. And I'm going to make a couple of notions bags out of it. So that's what I'm going to do with that. But I still needed a sampler for our Guild Gallery show of core spun and what core spun looks like woven. So this isn't finished yet. It's pressed and I have washed it and finished it. But it's actually going to be a table runner. And I hem stitched it like a good little monkey, and I have knotted off my fringe because I'm going to leave it as fringe. But this is the Edgewood Garden bat, and it goes to the yellow and then to the green. And I didn't want to use up any more green, so I just did the rest of it in yellow because this skein originally was the biggest. And I am going to trim the fringe. It's going to be probably about 2 inches by the time I actually finish it off. I just have to pull out my rotary cutter, and I just haven't done it yet. And this is actually going to be a table runner for on our table in the fall. So, and in the meantime, I can use it for our Guild Gallery show. as my sample of what core spun yarn looks like woven, which is one of the things that people use it for most often. So I'm really happy with and pleased with how this came out. I didn't throw it in the dryer after I finished washing it. I just agitated it a ton and then I towel dried it and let it air dry because I didn't want to lose the look and I didn't want it to felt. I wanted it to full a little bit, but I didn't want to lose what the actual core spun looks like in the texture of the weaving. And I'll take some photos of this and post them, and you guys will be able to see what it actually looks like close up. I have resurrected a project that I had actually put aside, and you guys will remember this. I've talked about it a ton on the podcast. If you're interested in knowing more about the sweater, go back to the post that were in November because I talked about this a ton. Look for the podcast that had old lanolin in the title and you will have struck gold because that's where this was talked about. This is the Fireside Pullover by Jane Richmond, and Jane is a friend of mine and I was so excited to knit this. I was just over the moon. I was so enjoying the project other than the lanolin on the yarn. And I finished the body before Christmas time and I just burned out on it. And a lot of it was that I tried it on one evening and the first thing that came to my mind was, oh my goodness, this sweater makes me look enormous. And it doesn't. But I think it was just the wrong time to try it on. It was late at night. I was tired. I was sick all of December, which you guys might remember. And I just felt like it just was a terrible sweater on me. And then there's a girl that I work with. She's one of our new social workers and she wears the cutest clothes. And she was wearing this old man sweater and it was in this color. And it looks like it's a sweater from like the 80s or 90s. Like she's probably taken it from like her brother's closet or dad's closet or something because she's totally like that. But it has this really cool folded over and sewn down shawl collar, kind of like Cowichan sweater-esque, but smaller. And it's got a zipper that comes right up to here, but she was wearing it open. And it fits very much like this sweater that I'm wearing. And I'll post a photo of it so that you can see how this sweater fit. And so it's got kind of like a bowl shape a little bit, the sweater that she was wearing. And she had this gorgeous linen blouse underneath that's very similar to my yellow one that I'm wearing today. And it just looked super cute, and she was wearing it with skinny jeans, and she's just really cute anyways, but she's quite she's not super tall, but a lot of the clothing that she wears I can wear, so it's kind of nice to see what she's wearing sometimes because some of her style choices and stuff, it's stuff that I wouldn't necessarily try myself, but she's actually inspired quite a few outfits. So the cool thing about that was I now have a sweater idea brewing in the back of my head that could be like part of my daily uniform, which I've been talking about quite a bit over on Maker Radio. And I really wanted to use this yarn because I was like, I'm not going to knit with that. I'm not going to finish that sweater anyways. It looks terrible on me, blah, 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 blah. And then, so I decided before I ripped it out that I would show it to my husband. And he doesn't like anything I make, so he at least will give me an honest opinion. And so I showed him the sweater, and I said, can I try this on? And I'll show it to you, and you can tell me what you think. And he's like, yeah, no problem. So I went and put it on, and of course, again, I started feeling a bit frumpy and a little bit like, oh, it's a big pullover, it's chunky yarn, blah, 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 blah. And I came into the living room, and he's like, oh, that's not frumpy. That was the first thing he said. And I was like, what? So is it terrible? And like, is it worse than frumpy? And he said, no, I really like it. It looks great on you. Who knew? So it's kind of bred in new life to the sweater project. And I'm going to try. I only have the sleeves to do. I'm just going to finish it. One thing that I showed him when I had it on was I actually, Jane had posted about adding buttons to the collar. And because I don't have really big shoulders and I'm not very big busted, I do need something to kind of secure the shawl because otherwise it just kind of flops open. And I have this amazing button that I bought at Electric Tree in Kamloops, which is a knitting shop in the interior of British Columbia. And I love that store. If you ever go through Kamloops, stop at Electric Tree. It's downtown. And I'm going to put the button that I bought here because, sorry, the kids are just banging on the door, because it's a wooden button and it's an owl and it would just be perfect for this sweater. So this has totally gotten some new life into it. I am going to scour it once it's finished, and try and get all that old lanolin out of there, because it's just, it's still just awful. Now I have lanolin all over my hands. So it's not been great to work with, which I think is why I kind of burned out on it a little bit. So one step at a time, and I'll try and get that finished. I have a really big combo spin that I just started, and I don't want to go into too much detail about it because it's actually the Thoughtful Spinner essay for March, but I did want to really quickly show my little spindle. This is a combo spin of 4 different indie dyers, and I'm going to steadily work on this over the course of 2017. I was really torn about what I wanted to do for my Zero to Hero spackle this year, and our Zero to Hero spackle is basically a year-long spackle that we run in the group. Anything that you started for your Zero to Hero in 2016, you can totally carry it through and keep on working on it in 2017. But I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was really waffling, and we had talked about maybe doing Year of the Haps and doing a hap, because that's still on my list of things I want to do. But in the end, I decided to do a really big combo spin. So if you follow, or if you've seen the Passionate Spinner podcast, she's German, Teresa. She has a demo, and I'll link to it in the show notes at wellfordpearls.com. She has a demo of how to do these big combo spins. But basically, I took I chose 4 braids of fiber out of my stash. And this is actually all going to be bobbin 2. So this is going to be the second strand of my 2-ply. And you divide it all up, and then you strip it down from here, and then you jumble it all up. And there's a whole demo and talk about how you do this. And there was an article in Spin-Off magazine in the winter issue that followed this all up. So hopefully you have access to all of that, and you can have a look up and see what I'm actually talking about. But I have this massive bag of fiber, and I'm just going to work on it throughout the course of the year, and that is going to be my Zero to Hero spackle project for 2017. So I'm actually really excited about it, and like you can see, I've already started it. And once I finish my fiber from my friend Nina of Fuzzy Love Knots, I'm going to do that blue stuff that I showed you, I think, last time. Once that's finished, then this will become my take-along travel project. So if you're interested in doing a Zero to Hero for 2017, you can head over to the chatter thread and find out all about it, because it's all the information is there. There's no rules. You just have to go from fiber all the way to finished object, whatever that is for you. And the idea is to support one another in doing that, because those are big projects to take on. I have another spinning project that I'm going to take on, which is a marled yarn out of these 2 Shetland braids of fiber that I have from Chaotic Fibers on Vancouver Island that I'm going to start working on, and I wanted to share with you really quickly. Today's prompt for the Yarn Love Challenge is progress, and the reason why I wanted to share this with you is because with the combo spin, my sweater, the fireside pullover, and this and another combo spin that I want to do, which I'm going to share with you next week, I am actually getting really low on stash. Finally, I am starting to get through it with my spin the bin from last year and again this year. I'm actually getting through it. So that's huge progress. So this is next up, and I'm really excited about this one because I'm going to make a marled singles and then a marled, and then ply them together and make an even more marled yarn. So I'm really excited about that, and I love Shetland. I love spinning Shetland. So that is going on. I'm going to give you a little bit of a teaser for things to come. My friend Felicia has published Dying to Spin and Knit. This is a book from Interweave. Many of you will have already heard about it. Felicia is a dear friend of mine, and I do teach for Sweet Georgia, so I'm a little bit biased because I consider myself part of the team at Sweet Georgia. Felicia gave me this copy, and she actually signed it, which was really lovely. But I have been contacted by Interweave to review the book, so they are actually sending me another copy. So it's a little bit of a teaser, but over the next couple months I am going to review this book, and I am going to give one away. So I hope that you will all enjoy that. The other thing, and this is just really fun, I wanted to show you, I actually am modeling one of the shawls. So that is me. If you have seen the book, this is me, the Amplify shawl. And any of the photos that are of feet, they're my feet. So any of the socks are my feet modeling. And I did do some of the spinning for the book, which was really cool. So a whole bunch of my friends are also, were also involved in the book. My friend Greta is in here. My friend Katrina did some of the knitting. My friend Deborah did some of the knitting. There's a whole bunch of us in here. So if you haven't seen this book yet, try to get your hands on it, and I will have a complete review in the next couple of months. I think that's it for today. I'm really losing my voice now, so I'm going to say goodbye. I hope you enjoyed the intro at the beginning with the photos and sort of a taste of what was to come in the show. If you did, please let me know, or like any feedback is always appreciated. Have a wonderful weekend. We are just seeing the tail end of snow here, so I hope that you are all keeping safe and in the winter conditions, and I'm hoping that spring is just around the corner and we'll be able to start thinking about sun. Fibers West is also coming up. I will be at Fibers West for anybody who is local to the Vancouver area. Fibers West is one of our really big shows that happens every year. It's kind of like Knit City, but it's just a different venue, different feel. I will be with my friend Katrina. We will be have a booth together, so she'll have all of her bats, and I will be there with the Sukaplocky control cards for anybody who would like to buy one. The other thing I wanted to put a plug out for was that I will have my Spinolution Mach 3 wheel at the show, and it will be for sale as a show deal. So I have the 8 ounce and the 16 ounce heads for that, and the skein winder. So if you are interested in seeing that, if you've never seen one in real life and you'd like to come and try it, come on over to the booth early on Friday. And you may, if you're interested in purchasing, you may have yourself a little bit of a deal. So I hope to see you. Please come and say hello, even if you just want to meet and greet. I really enjoy putting faces to names. It really helps me. And until next time, happy spinning. Bye, guys.